The Taliban have captured Afghanistan's third biggest city, Herat, and appear poised to gain control of Kandahar, the second largest. In Herat, previously controlled by government forces, militants freed thousands of prisoners from jail. The United States says it's sending troops to the Afghan capital, Kabul, to help evacuate some civilian staff from the American embassy. But the State Department insisted the embassy would stay open. The head of the World Meteorological Organization has voiced concern about the effects of climate change in the Mediterranean region after Italy registered what's thought to be a record temperature of 48.8 degrees. There's also been extreme weather in Turkey. Kastamonu, a city in the north of the country, has been hit by flash floods after torrential rainfall. 17 people have reportedly died.
The U.S. State Department says the country is sending 3,000 troops to Afghanistan to help bring home workers from the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. In Poland, lower house lawmakers pass a bill limiting foreign control of the country's media. Critics say it could cause a U.S. company to lose control of a news channel critical of Poland's government. In Turkey, 6 people are dead and 1 is missing after sudden flooding hit areas near the Black Sea. And in Zambia, citizens vote for president and National Assembly members as political tensions are high.
We're going to move on now to our GMA cover story and those 2 big headlines on the COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC updating its recommendations for pregnant women, and earlier Dr. Fauci confirming that the FDA will soon authorize that 3rd dose of the vaccine for immunocompromised people. Dr. Jennifer Ashton joins us now with the very latest. Dr. Jen, so yes, let's first start with the news about this 3rd dose, this booster shot we've been hearing so much about. Who specifically will be eligible or should get the shot?
Well, we have to wait and see over the next day to 2 days, of course. But in general, that term weakened immune system or immune compromised, we think of some major groups: people with organ transplantation, people undergoing chemotherapy for cancer, or people living with HIV, AIDS, or who have an autoimmune condition or on suppressive medications. But we also have to remember pregnancy is immune compromised condition, and so is older age. So we have to wait and see exactly who gets into that criteria initially.
And speaking of pregnant women, new recommendations for them as well, that they should absolutely get this vaccine. A lot of pregnant women were really on the fence about this or deciding not to get vaccinated, and we're hearing now that they should.
Right. So last week we heard the OBGYNs, the top professional organizations, imploring women to get that vaccine in all stages of pregnancy. Then just yesterday we heard the CDC director urging women who are eligible in all 3 trimesters, women who are considering being pregnant, and women who are breastfeeding to get vaccinated. What changed is brand new data suggesting no increased risk either of miscarriage early in pregnancy or in later stages of pregnancy of any untoward safety signals. And we know what the risks of COVID are in this population, so that's why they made this new recommendation.
All right, and then what do we know about the vaccine as it pertains to fertility, breastfeeding, some of the other issues surrounding pregnancy?
And this myth took off on social media. Right now, again, they have data on tens of thousands of pregnant women and natural history of COVID over the last 18 months. And here's what we know at this point. Number 1, women who are vaccinated do pass antibodies to their newborn, both in later stages of pregnancy and in breastfeeding. There has been no demonstrated impact on the ability to get pregnant, on fertility, on conception, on menstrual cycle. Again, these background rates of things will continue to happen. They're looking for an increased rate of any of those things in women who have been vaccinated, and so far there has been no indication of such. So can things happen by coincidence? Yes, but there is no evidence, no proof that there's an increased risk. So the benefits far outweigh any potential risk.
You're not only protecting yourself, but your unborn child.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Jen, thank you very much. To Afghanistan, the Taliban seizing control of more and more territory, with all U.S. troops set to withdraw by the end of this month. Concerns are growing that the militants could take the capital. Ian Pannell has the latest on all of this. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Amy. This is starting to sound familiar, right? The Taliban advancing once more, now taking their 10th major city of Ghazni this morning, closing in on Kandahar in the south, and of course their main target of Kabul, the capital. They're now just 80 miles away, and of course it's home to the US Embassy and hundreds of US troops.
Overnight, video released by the Afghan government apparently showing airstrikes on Taliban positions in Kandahar, but their efforts aren't doing enough to slow them down. in a video released by the militants displaying what appears to be some of their growing arsenal. A helicopter left behind by retreating government forces and a treasure trove of Humvees and heavy equipment at a former army base now under their command. The speed and ferocity of their takeover is bewildering. Gunfire echoes through many Afghan streets as terrified residents are forced to run for their lives. And the militants parade their victories. Here in the western city of Farah, Taliban fighters patrolling the streets. And in Polikumri in the north, a Taliban video showing their white flag hoisted high. They now control almost 2/3 of the country.
Well, that US military assessment also suggesting the capital could be isolated in as few as 30 days. And of course, all US troops are going to be out by the end of the month, but the plan is for the embassy to carry on running. Given the speed of the Taliban advance, you've got to think the security situation for the embassy staff is under constant review. Michael?
Security is first for sure. Ian, thank you so much.
People in southwestern Japan are bracing for heavy rain and potential disasters. Weather officials are warning the rainfall could trigger landslides and flooding. The meteorological agency says dense rain clouds are bringing sporadic downpours mainly to the Kyushu region. Kumamoto, Fukuoka, and Nagasaki prefectures have had more than 300 millimeters of rain in the past 2 days. Many parts of northern Kyushu have had more rain than they get on an average in the whole of August. Officials have issued mudslide alerts and evacuation orders for many areas in Kyushu. They say rivers in Fukuoka and Kumamoto are overflowing. People living near the rivers in Kumamoto have received a level 5 warning, the highest possible. They're being urged to immediately secure their safety by evacuating or moving to a higher floor. The meteorological agency issued a warning on Thursday after detecting a band of active rain clouds over Fukuoka and Kumamoto. People in Kumamoto shared this video of major flooding in a residential area. Weather officials say up to 300 millimeters of rain could fall on Kyushu in the next 24 hours. Much of the rest of the nation can also expect heavy rainfall. The weather front is expected to linger over Japan through next week. Stationary rain fronts have caused severe damage in the recent past. In August 2014, one such front hovered over the country for about a week. The storms caused mudslides in Hiroshima and left 77 people dead. Heavy rain caused many houses in Kyoto and Gifu prefectures to flood. Now, here's some safety advice for people in the affected areas. Be sure to check your local hazard map to find out about dangerous places around you before the rain gets worse. Keep up with the latest information from weather and local officials on your TV, radio, and the internet. And get ready to evacuate. If you feel you're in danger, start evacuating before you're told to do so. Moving to the coronavirus situation here in Japan, nearly 19,000 new cases were confirmed across the nation on Thursday. That's a record high for the second day in a row. Experts are describing the situation as akin to a disaster. Almost 5,000 infections were reported in the capital. The number of seriously ill patients here hit a new high at 218. Experts for the Tokyo metropolitan government say the virus is spreading with unprecedented speed. The average number of new cases per 7 days has doubled in 2 weeks, pushing the medical system close to breaking point.
The care system, including ordinary care, has become extremely dysfunctional. A further increase in the number of seriously ill patients could lead to a crisis. We could lose many lives that would otherwise have been saved.
Tokyo's rapid surge is being seen across the nation. 20 prefectures, including Osaka and Fukuoka, have logged new daily highs. The capital's panel of experts is calling for stricter measures to tackle the situation. They include reducing the flow of people in shopping malls and department stores, as well as asking companies to allow more staff to work from home. Meanwhile, a staff member of Tunisia's Paralympic team has tested positive for the coronavirus upon arrival at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. The team has 32 members and is due to hold its training camp in Tokyo. The local government that's hosting the team says the infected member will isolate in accommodation designated by quarantine officials. The other members will stay in a hotel as planned. 11 will be interviewed by health workers as they may have been in close contact with the infected person. If they're deemed close contacts, they'll have to stay in separate rooms and have their health checked every day. On Monday, a member of Ghana's Paralympic team tested positive after arriving at Narita Airport. The Tokyo Paralympics are set to kick off on August 24th. Now, the World Health Organization says it'll start clinical trials of 3 drugs used for other diseases as potential treatments for coronavirus patients who are seriously ill. The 3 are the malaria drug artesunate, imatinib, which is used to treat certain cancers, and infliximab, a medicine for Crohn's disease. The WHO says the trials will be carried out at more than 600 hospitals in 52 countries. The head of the UN Health Agency said there's still a critical need to find more effective treatments for COVID-19 patients.
My sincere hope is that one or more of the drugs being tested in the Solidarity Plus trial will prove to be effective in treating COVID-19.
Data from Johns Hopkins University show the global tally has reached over 204 million cases across the globe. The number has doubled in about 6 months following the emergence of the highly contagious Delta variant. Many people in China have been shopping for a new car, but they're finding empty lots at the dealership. A global semiconductor shortage is making it difficult for automakers to keep up. That's led to the 3rd consecutive month of declining sales. China's Car Makers Association says about 1.86 million vehicles were sold last month. That's down nearly 12% from the same month last year. Passenger car sales fell 7%. Sales of commercial vehicles tumbled 30% after authorities tightened emissions rules and cut infrastructure investment. The association says the impact of the chip shortage is at its worst now, but may ease in the second half this year. It adds the increase in coronavirus infections outside China, where semiconductor plants are located, could affect automakers in chip procurement. People in Japan have been remembering the victims of the country's worst air disaster. An airliner crash 36 years ago claimed 520 lives. Bereaved relatives headed to the site to honor the memory of their loved ones. On August 12, 1985, a Japan Airlines jumbo jet crashed into a mountain in Gunma Prefecture north of Tokyo. The plane was nearly full because people were traveling during a holiday season. Only 4 people on board survived. Groups including bereaved relatives have visited the crash site on the anniversary every year. Since the pandemic began last year, they've been limited to mainly relatives to keep numbers down. Hashimoto Takeshi lost his brother in the crash and began visiting the site on the anniversary 2 years later. He got there early in the morning. He'd been in 2 minds about going in the midst of the pandemic, but decided he couldn't miss it.
8月12日は8月12日だよな。今日来ないと非常に落ち着かない。
Relatives of crash victims are getting old. Yamaoka Kyoko is in her 70s. She made the climb with help from her son, Naoki. Kyoko lost 2 teenage daughters in the crash. She and her son placed a photo of the girls at the site and offered prayers.
突然事故で家族を奪われて年数っていうのはあんまり関係ないんですよね。だから36年経ったからちょっと悲しみが小さくなったとかいうのは全くないんでね。
A scaled-back annual memorial service was held at the foot of the mountain. Participants lit 520 candles. They observed a moment of silence at 6:56 p.m., the exact time of the crash. And those were the headlines we're following.